I'm your host, NeufAtora, and this is the podcast where I discuss the best stories with the best minds in the community. On this episode, I'll be discussing structure and literature. With me, I have Rook of Spades. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you on. And I believe it's the first time you have been a guest
I
on
believe
here.
so,
So it's
yes.
it's very nice to have you, Rook.
Indeed, indeed.
So to start out, how would you actually define the structure in a piece of writing? Like, what are the elements that compose it?
Well, it's tough to say, especially in creative writing and whatnot, because, well, the idea is to be creative, to do something that stands out and sort of sets you apart from others in your field a good bit. And, well, that is, it's the main idea is to sort of get to like the base components. There's a guy, something happens, and then that issue resolves and whatnot. And most stories are just sort of a wash, rinse, repeat of that cycle a few times until you complete the story.
Hmm.
But the main idea, I think, is to try and do it in a creative way. Sometimes you see it with stories that will be told backwards or
Yeah.
that will try to harken to other stories and whatnot. And I don't know, it's tough to say exactly because it's a very fluid structure and whatnot, and what we have.
Yeah. And I mean, you have other things like non-linear structures like that. The thing that Quentin
Oh, definitely.
Tarantino is probably the most famous for.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, there's so many ways to play around with structure, and it's kind of
Indeed.
funny because, well, I mean, essentially, um, it's basically the way the story unfolds, as you said, like where you place the rising and falling action, the
Hmm.
climax, all of that, and it's kind of like a scavenger hunt in a way, like going through
Oh,
stories,
definitely.
picking up pieces of what the author chose to highlight, and then slowly forming a full picture of the narrative and the writer's intentions as you go. It's kind of fun.
Oh,
It's like
definitely.
it's like you're following a treasure map that the author
Oh, definitely.
um, put out in a bottle, in the message in a bottle in the ocean, and then we found
Oh,
it in the
definitely.
yeah. Um,
Oh, definitely. One of my favorite things to do when writing anything is just try to like put like a little throwaway line very early on in the piece, and then like have it like have different consequences later and whatnot. Like,
mhm.
oh, it's a warm day out or something like that. I don't know. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but
Yeah, yeah. If it was a JRPG, the "it's a warm day outside" would then translate into foreshadowing for the end of the world is coming by the sun crashing into the
oh
planet.
no, the heat death of the universe. The day. It
Yeah.
was too warm. No.
Yeah, that's something like that would happen.
That's how they do it. That's how they do it.
Yeah,
That's
and
how they
it's
get you.
fun as hell.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, cuz
It doesn't
it's
feel like a Wednesday.
yeah, cuz I feel a big part of that is that makes it work so well is because it's such a sound structure.
Oh, definitely.
And I think the funny part of structure is it's it if it works well and it's cohesive, it's not something you really pay attention to so much as so many of the other things. It's kind of like a
Mhm.
bass guitar. Like,
Oh yeah.
you don't notice it's there, but then if it's
Mm.
messed up or if it's taken away, then you immediately notice, you realize the actual impact that it had. It's sort of holding
Oh,
the
definitely.
the story together and filling, providing.
Oh, definitely. Like,
I get really.
I don't.
Go
Mhm.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, and just sort of like a different example. I'm not much of a music guy, unfortunately, but I don't think about how often I use my skeleton. But if it wasn't there, I'd probably notice.
Yeah, yeah. That's a damn good a metaphor analogy. Uh, yeah, I like that quite a bit.
Well, thank you.
Um, yeah, I mean it really is one of the least discussed aspects of writing, especially in this community,
Oh, indeed.
but it has such a tangible effect on the overall narrative that you're trying to convey.
Mhm.
Um, just to further the analogies, it's like building a building. So you have
Hmm.
all the pieces that are put in a place up to make up the whole. Yeah, I mean you have windows into the minds of you and your characters, doors to new worlds, and the thing supporting it all is the foundation or the structure.
Almost assuredly.
Yeah. I'd say the community has done an admirable job of structuring our work in multiple different ways.
Oh, most definitely. There are some wonderful stories out there.
Yeah, you have novels like I Could Change Her by Siseda and Aurora
Oh,
Protocol by
definitely.
Hans the Shadow Melder.
Hmm.
Serialized stories like The Inheritance by Wedgie Lever 109 and Luckily
Oh, yeah.
Unlucky by Auntie Cherry. There's Hans has done some lipograms. There's scripts like The Office, Wedgie Wednesday by Magni Pulls. Choose Your Own
Oh, definitely.
Adventures like Aino's
Hmm.
Interactive Hunt by Siseda. There
Oh,
were a
yeah.
bunch of those popping up a
Almost
while back.
definitely.
Um, Fandom reactions or whatever you'd call them, like the Marvel one from Siseda. I don't know what you'd call them. Just the
Hmm.
those
Fair, fair.
lists of women reacting to different wedgies. I know there's like a bunch of them. They were popular a while back.
Ah, true, true. I remember those.
Yeah, they're real good too. It's like a whole different way of
Oh,
telling a
definitely.
story.
Oh, most assuredly. Most assuredly.
I guess it's sort of.
Mhm.
I never really thought about those lists of reactions before, but they do seem to like fall prey to the most widespread and boring tropes of fan fiction in this community of a lot of the time of
Ah, fair.
um,
Every now and then.
these characters only have one or two personality traits. That's it. Um,
Hmm.
but I think it works a little better here in those reactions because it is such the time that the characters on like quote unquote on screen for it. Um, it is such a truncated form
Oh,
of
definitely.
if
It,
it was just any other story.
indeed, it does sort of lend itself well to that sort form of storytelling because, well, generally, if someone's going online to look up Marvel or whatnot, then generally it's something that they have a good bit of knowledge about already. So it's not necessarily, all right, I'm going to write a story. Let me just spark notes the 50-year long history of Black Widow or whatnot. It's just like, no, Black Widow, she's here. She's cool. She's sassy. Get with it.
This is the type of underwear she has. This is the type
Exactly.
of wedgie she's getting. But it does work a little better, I think, because it's such a shortened down and condensed. Yeah, it's the time that you have face to face with those characters is so condensed
Indeed.
that you
Quite so, quite so.
you don't really have the time to focus on any other details besides what's most immediately relevant. It's sort of like flash fiction in that way, I guess.
I was about to say, it's very flash fiction-y.
Yeah, like you can't you have to only have a couple one or two
Hmm.
big points to get across. This is what this character is like, and So I think it works a lot better than just a regular story where you only have one or two character traits, and it's you stretch that out over
Mhm.
multiple pages.
Oh, definitely. Like if it's just but no, that just you want to have this story exist. Voila, it exists. It's not something you need to. Not to say that there isn't a lot of effort that goes into those stories, obviously, but it's not something that you need to sit around like make a storyboard, research quite as intensely. Like, I've seen a Marvel movie or two. I can probably do this.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like that's where a lot of the motivation for fan fiction comes from. Is
Indeed.
uh, uh, I think I guess it depends on who's doing it, but yeah, um, there yeah, fan fiction is very low hanging fruit in this community. I suppose that's how I'll put it.
A wee bit.
Um,
Not anything against any fan fiction writers out there. I don't want to like
nah,
destroy
no.
poor NeufAtora's fan base on my first episode. That'd make me feel slightly bad, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's there's a reason it's probably the most pervasive,
Indeed.
or at least it was, if it isn't still.
Oh, definitely. From my experience, it still seems to be fairly accessible, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, it's yeah. Um, I mean, I thought of another version, another kind of structure of
Oh,
the visual novels or
oh
I
yes.
guess tech quote unquote video games, even though they're not really.
Hmm.
I don't really consider things like that games, but
Indeed.
those have a very different structure than just words on a page or a document because you have visuals as well now to tell the story. You don't have just a
Hmm, hmm.
page to fill with a bunch of words. You have to do it through dialogue and visuals, and so
Indeed.
telling a story in that way is a very different challenge.
Ah, yeah. And it's a lot of them are fairly like simple images. It's usually like the same pose, and they'll like have one pose smiling, the other one with the eyebrows kind of furrowed, things like that. But with the right writing and whatnot, you can combine the two to get like a lot more reactions than you could with just like the base materials on their own.
Yeah,
Which is always nice.
I don't know why I just randomly thought of this. For
Fair, fair.
there've
It's a
been
good one.
well there I don't know why no this thing that I'm just about to say. Uh, um, well I make like I've been working on this video game for multiple weeks now. So like and I've been
Ah, yes.
playing retro games just to like for like Game Boy games just to get the feel for like why these are fun. So
Oh, wonderful.
that's where that is coming from. Like thinking about how to tell a story in this
Oh,
very
definitely.
limited fashion. Um, but what was it? Oh, it's going away. Damn it, I lost
No
it.
rush at all. It'll come back to you. It'll come back to you.
Hopefully. Yeah, I
Ah,
don't know. I can't remember what it is I was gonna say. Ah, man.
not to worry. Not to worry. Happens to the best of us.
Yeah, and it's happened to me many times before. So, what sort of effect do you think structure can have on on storytelling?
Hmm. Well, it depends a good bit on what sort of story you're going for. Like, there are a good few moments that I point to in my head of, like, this is a case in where structure has had a very impactful effect on how the stories are portrayed or how things go down.
Hmm.
Uh, well, one that comes to mind immediately is the comic book series Watchmen.
Yeah.
Sort of. Uh, yeah, also, people at home, you may want to like turn the sound off for like 5 minutes or so, just to if you care about spoilers at all. It's a 20-year-old comic, but you know I'd rather not be yelled at over a
Yeah.
20-year-old comic. So hey, but uh,
Spoiler
but
warning.
spoiler warning, you've been warned. Leave me alone after this. Anyway, but yes, but Watchmen has this very neat structural detail of the bad guys sort of unveiling their plan, what their idea is, and after it, and at the end of it, the heroes obviously, in classic hero fashion, say, "I don't think so. We're going to stop you," and the
Yeah.
bad guy just says, "Oh, by the way, I already did it 20 minutes ago while I was giving you the speech."
Oh yeah.
And it's oh yeah, it's like it's a nice way to sort of subvert expectations a bit because written by Alan Moore, obviously the man who both loves and hates superheroes a good bit,
Mhm.
likes to try and play around with the tropes a bit of everything, and like usually that's what happened. Like there would be a fight breaking out, plan would be stopped, day saved, and no, no. What if we just nuked a couple cities instead? Yeah, you missed it. Sorry. Should have gotten here sooner.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's like it's kind of fun. Like uh, so many of the most popular pieces of media and most revered and well regarded are some of them are the ones that play around with structure,
Oh, definitely.
where things are played. Like, yeah, that's I, most people would go into Watchmen expecting like if they haven't read something like that before, then they'd be thinking like, yeah, it'll be the big showdown, the the cliche of the supervillain setting off the timer as soon as the guy gets here, as if he's waiting for him so he can show off. Uh, and then they're no, this guy's a real person. He's actually understands that that's a stupid thing to do. You got to get your planning
Yeah.
gear before the hero comes in. It's kind of like it's kind of a self aware moment, like a genre
Oh, yeah.
savvy moment.
Oh, definitely. Like it's very much a case where we're sort of in a parody renaissance, for lack of a better term, where just there's so much media that exists across so many forums all at once, and it's to the point where it's almost more impactful to sort of play against the established things at this point, or to say, hey, or just to have a series going on and just say, hey, Lord of the Rings, but Sauron wins, or things like that, tropes like that to sort of delve into like the more abstract thinking of it. Normally, when you read through a story, you're sort of processing it as it goes along, and then not really thinking, ah, that was neat, but what if they'd done this instead? It's sort of like going back with the hindsight to sort of extend, sort of elaborate it on it a little bit and say, ah, I hadn't thought of it that way before,
Mm-hmm.
in a manner of speaking.
Yeah, so you're having what's currently playing out be more engaging than what could have happened.
Oh yeah,
Very nice.
like it's very telling that nowadays, whenever I'm talking with someone or just looking at movie reviews and whatnot, often or not, more often than not, I mean, a lot of the reviews will focus less on what's actually in the movie and more of compare them to other films, like
Yeah.
Spider-Man. It's like Batman, but with spiders. Or
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of when you examine the structure of reviews, it's sort of you can it sort of exposes the paint by numbers plug and play nature of these reviewers. They
Oh, definitely.
follow a very um, specific format, I suppose.
Indeed, indeed.
Once you start once you start thinking of these um, below ground topics, then it sort of at least it started to change how I was thinking about other the other media I was consuming, the way I was looking at
Mm-hmm.
it. It's
Oh,
I,
definitely.
that's why I love having these conversations because it gets me thinking about storytelling and detail all the aspects of writing in so many different ways that I probably wouldn't have thought of before.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. It's always interesting just to sort of think, aha, and just I know when I'm writing, I sort of get in the habit of like I seem to think of things only one way while I'm really focused on it. So I'll
Hmm.
be like, ah, yes, the pen is blue. Blue is the pen. Blue is the color of the pen. Blue is the color of pens in general. All pens are blue. Things
Yeah.
like that. Then just like I'll be discussing it with someone, and like, wow, that was a neat red pen you had in there. Hmm, I must reevaluate the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, what does it mean now that since not all pens are blue as it was
My
previously thought?
God,
Yeah.
maybe the pen was purple the whole time.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I- that's I mean it's kind of the thing with structures that it touches upon so many other aspects of writing that it's kind of hard to isolate and specifically define on its own, because so much of what structure is ends up being defined by what happens in the story, like the story beats. The structure is where this happened, like the hero
Indeed.
refused at first, and then it it it's such a I wish there was more conversation around this piece
Oh,
of
definitely,
writing,
definitely.
because ultimately I believe it's one of the most important aspects of writing,
Hmm.
since structuring your story badly will make it very incoherent or just not flow very well,
Indeed,
and it becomes very jarring to read.
indeed. Story organized into a nice little packet, nice little bow on it, reads a lot better than one scrawled entirely on the bathroom of a Waffle House and whatnot.
Yeah, in most cases, if you oh a how do you say it, a well I don't know how you I don't know what term you use to say it. I guess a structure that's put together well. Not really how, but a structure that's put together well is something that you're not really gonna notice
Ah,
when you're
true.
reading it. Like I mean,
Indeed,
I
sort
guess
of
I
an.
kind of say this before, but if like bass guitar, really, if you take it away, then
Ah, yeah.
you notice it.
Indeed, indeed. Yeah, if structure does its job well, you won't even notice it's there.
Yeah, yeah, and so it
It's
kind of
like if it's a good structure, then you just read through it normally, think, ah, that was a neat story. If it's bad structure, then you say, huh, we kind of feels like we skipped 5 chapters there, but whatever, or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. You just like why is this happening now,
Indeed,
or why didn't this happen earlier? Like that, yeah, you'll
indeed.
it seems like you only really pick up on the structure unless you're like actively searching for it. You really only pick up on it
Oh, definitely.
if it's confusing.
Hmm.
So
Definitely, definitely.
I guess paying attention to uh, the flow of your story. Um, making sure that it makes sense that events are happening when they are.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah. Um, like I listened to I would listen to this this guy on YouTube review Rayman 1.
Ah,
Um, and he described one part of it in a way that I really liked. He basically said something like the one he was talking about one of the platforming one of the tricky platforming parts, and he's saying that like it was structured or something like it was done well because like it flowed very well because you wouldn't have been able to make that jump or whatever it was without everything that happened before, like learning all of the mechanics and becoming intimately familiar with
ah,
them and having so much practice with them. You wouldn't be able to
right, right.
without having all of that previous experience.
Indeed,
So
indeed.
it doesn't make sense to have it anywhere else, but like it makes sense to have that part of the game there.
Hmm. Definitely.
Oh.
Like, it's generally, or at least I believe, at least, whenever you make a story, if it's the first thing in your mind as you're writing, apart from what you're writing, is what you've written before, or what events are leading up to what you're writing to sort of help keep it cohesive. Like, just obviously, community being what it is, there are a lot of stories that like to just cut to the chase, as it were. Get
Mm-hmm.
sort of rush through. Yeah, here's some preamble. Voila. Focus on this on the climax and whatnot for a good couple of pages. So then, following action, just voila, situation resolved. Huzzah.
Mm-hmm.
And like that can be very good. Like again, flash fiction, wonderful genre of writing,
Yeah.
wonderful thing for like writing thought experiments and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, a lot of them tend to sort of gloss over motivations and whatnot, which nothing wrong with that. Just like generally, like
Well,
I don't know, a lot of context goes a long way.
I think it can work depending on the character, but for the most part, I think your
Indeed.
character should have their motivations end up being clearly defined.
Oh, definitely.
Otherwise, it's like the characters do sort of end up feeling a little um driftless.
Indeed. Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, when I think about it, flash fiction seems to be like the go-to for back in the day. That seems to be like the best way to describe the structure
Wonderful.
of old stories, like from the Wedgie Girls board, and then for a while in the early days of Lucky Fetish. I don't know how prevalent it was in DeviantArt, um, but I mean you have it really it was just stories getting right to the point, no no fluff whatsoever. Also, uh, the bar wasn't raised as high, so not written as well for the most
True,
part.
true. When there's not a lot of content in what you're going for, you can kind of make it whatever you want, really. People
Yeah.
will still come to it.
Yeah, well, especially when there's not much there, because then you have some of the only content available.
Trust me, I'm a Berserk fan. I know what it's like to be starved for content.
Well,
uh,
at least it is being if at least it's being finished, even if it's not by the original mangaka.
indeed, indeed. I'm excited to see how they do it, and hopefully they do it justice. But I've gotten off topic. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
Aye,
That's how I
yeah,
always view these things. It's just conversation. So
yeah,
if the topic
indeed.
changes, then that's fine because it's just how
Fair enough.
conversation goes.
Welcome to the best book club, featuring
Yeah,
story structure and also a 5-hour rant about
yeah,
Berserk.
because it's just the topic of the episode is just the foundation. It's the structure
Yeah.
for the conversation, but
Aha.
it's not the
Bringing it
development.
back. There we
Yeah.
go. uh,
Yeah, doing all this without a communications degree. You don't need to go to school, people.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I have a double major degree. Maybe don't tell him not to go to school. That kind of hurts my feelings a little bit. uh, uh,
Well,
uh,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
fair, fair.
it's yeah. That's what sort of structures seem to be the most prevalent today?
Hmm.
I'd definitely say one of them is the serialized format slash
Oh,
structure.
definitely. Like,
That's yeah,
definitely nowadays, you do see a lot more stories that are like broken up into a lot of smaller parts and whatnot, or have more of a chapter structure to them.
yeah,
Uh, which I'm all for. Wonderful.
yeah,
It's sort of like just it's nice to be able to tune in every couple of weeks. Hopefully, writer's block, real problem, but as like a rough estimate, every couple of weeks, just to say, there's a little bit of story picking up from where that last story left off. I like more story. Let's have more story.
mm-hmm. Yeah. It is. I think it can. Jesus Christ.
No worries.
It makes complete sense to me as to why serialization has become so prevalent because it affords the writer so much extra space to develop the plot, develop the characters.
Indeed.
It gives you the space to be able to uh, add in details that might not have you might not have had the space for otherwise that increase the enjoyment engagement and
Indeed.
I
Like,
think you're able to you might you in some ways you can kind of go further than you otherwise could in like a one-off or flash fiction because
oh, definitely.
you have so much more space to build things up and let things let the tension die down. You
Hmm. Definitely. Like, I know starting off, I did a lot of short stories, and one of the things that was sort of a block to it was that, with short stories, you kind of have to assume, okay, random guy looking at my page, this might be my first story of his I'm seeing, so I should probably include like a description of the characters and whatnot. Which wonderful, wonderful. It's just that when you're writing a lot of short stories, writing, yes, the character looks like this and has a face, and they also do this occasionally. They have this weird. It can get kind of tiring, repetitive. It makes you sort of block yourself a bit. Like it sort of becomes automatic, and when things are automatic, they become a little bit less enjoyable in a way.
yeah
With more serialized stuff, if you like you pull up a page and you go to chapter 5 and there's a character you don't know what they look like, well, that's on you, buddy. Like you got here late to the party. You can read back a few chapters.
yeah it's also I think it also pushes people's interest to go back and read because they see this portion of the story and like it's in the middle of it, so
Definitely.
they're not entirely sure how people got there, and so
Indeed, indeed.
they people want to go back and read the rest of it, and then like they might think, hey, this story is pretty good. Let's see what else this guy has. Like
Oh yeah.
that's kind of what happened with me with Wedgie Lover 109 and Jake and Gwen. Like I found the story
Hmm.
in part 31, I think, something like that, and like wow, this is really I really like this. I want to go back and see where the characters were in the beginning and how they got here,
Indeed,
especially
indeed.
in Jake and Gwen. Like that's a pretty wild situation to be in. So like, how the hell did they get in this situation?
Who the hell starts a conversation like that? I just sat down.
Yeah, yeah. That yeah, that small meme for a little bit. So that's just as a completely unrelated tangent for just a minute. As a lover of memes, I hate that memes have become like they're they're like just prostitutes at this point. They're turning over cheap tricks and then they're done for like
Oh, definitely. Like the life cycle of a meme is that something will happen in a show. Someone will think, ah, ha, ha, funny. Let me just screen capture this and put like a different character's name over Ultraman for a second.
mhm.
Uh, I'll pass this around. Everyone will do it. It'll be a lot of fun. A company will do it like, haha, Ultraman, Omni Man, he really loves Kit Kats.
Yeah,
And then people will stop doing it, move on to something else.
yeah. I I mean, I think you kind of always had people creating memes in that way, but
Oh,
the
definitely.
the lifetime of them is just so drastically reduced from what it was. It's like the opposite of human lifespans. Like
Indeed.
they've only gotten meme lifespans have only gotten short, as
True,
opposed to
true.
like the what the faces from like the troll face and like a boss and things like those lasted for years.
Yeah,
Like
those were like those had like a decade or so of supremacy, and they weren't even that good, really. It was just
no, they're
people
just
spelling bad. It was just a weird drawing and someone spelling badly.
uh
Why was that so prevalent?
yeah, and it set the precedent for how internet speak and how is these yeah it
I swear
and now like
the
so many
the
good
history of this would make
so
the
many
history of all this would make a weird novel. Like, in the beginning,
yeah
there were giants. Then came the cats. Then came all sorts of weird anime shit. The world was never the same.
yeah I mean I there's no doubt in my mind that at some point a college or something will offer a course in the history of memes
Hmm.
because they're so intrinsically a part of culture. Uh,
At that point, I feel like you'd have to have like a really, really into it professor who would like grade only with memes. Didn't use punctuation on page 5. Sure would be neat if you did.
oh God, yeah, yeah. I remember seeing teachers starting to use memes as I was leaving, as I graduated high school years ago. Like you're just now getting to it. You're
Hmm.
God, you're so far behind. That's when you know something's dead. Is when the generation that it's not meant for is finally using it.
Oh, definitely. When
It's
I was young, I was with it. Now what's it? Now I ain't with it. And what's it is weird and scary to me.
yeah,
It'll happen to you.
yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with music. It's like mu- music that's played on the radio is for a it's for the young it's for young people.
Hmm.
Uh, so the older you get, the less you're part of that demographic. So it's not gonna appeal to you anymore. Like
Oh, definitely.
mu-
Like just the fact that that not only is there a lot more content of all forms of media being made these days, but that people are a lot more picky about it just because there is all of it. Like they sort of have their option and fill of it. Like back in the day, it was possible to just manufacture a band. Like, hey, here's five somewhat attractive guys. Here's a song about love and a mansion.
Yeah,
Enjoy.
and
Uh,
they'd become the biggest thing on the planet.
yeah, and then we'd get like that was the case with a lot of things. Like
Hmm.
I think something similar was what happened with like the Spice Girls back in the day, or things like that. And then just like if you tried that today, people would just point and laugh derisively at you.
Oh yeah, I mean it's the same exact thing with things like the Beatles or Elvis Presley. If someone came out like that today, nobody would bat an eye. They probably wouldn't get any time of day beyond like, oh, they're just a so and so impersonator. Um,
Indeed.
yeah. Are there any examples of stories that that are either that have either really creative or really enjoyable structure?
Hmm. Well, I'll be honest, I may mainly use this section just to shout out my friends because they're cool
Sure,
and lovely people.
go for it.
Uh, so, our one of my favorite authors or writers in the community is my good friend Call Me Cody Please, uh, or PLS if you're going to look that up right now at the end. Uh, Essentially, her main series is Back to School, and it's does a very good job of just giving you giving you a very good in-depth look at every character. Like usually it'll be a case of this chapter is from character one's perception, this one's from character two's perception, and just going on a bit like that. Then okay, then so at some point, like you get a chapter from the point of view of the antagonist of the story, or things like that, and it's very neat to begin, and especially neat in the parts where you sort of see the same events from different perspectives. Like one person just thinking, this guy was kind of a jerk. And everyone's being like, man, hate to do it to you. I kind of like you, kid, but them's the breaks.
Yeah,
Or things like that, and things like that. And it's always interesting to like see like what the different reactions are from different characters in that scenario, like just to kind of get very in depth, sort of understand both sides very well. It's always a very neat and unique feeling.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're going with people that were shouting out, then I mean YWNR came to mind by Hans Gutherson of
Ah, yes.
stories with very enjoyable structures. Um, it because the whole time it's swapping back and forth between the present and I can't remember how much time in the past it was. But it is constantly swapping between the present and then Colleen's story from the past and describing Tracy and Hannah.
Indeed, indeed.
Um, but he structured it in a way so that it flows extremely well. Um, and the way he dresses that structure really by transitioning between time periods with Colleen's voice.
Hmm.
I think it is really well done. Like if it's transitioning into the past, like in the beginning when she first starts telling the story, and it's transitioning into the past. Half the sentence is Colleen speaking, and then the other half is narration in the past. And then it'll swap when returning to the present. Like it's really nicely done.
Indeed, indeed. It's always nice to sort of have that added bit of context to everything. Like as a potentially not really related, but somewhat tangentially related example, Rosebud. Wonderful film by Alfred Hitchcock. It sort of shows you the end of this man's life in the first scene, and the rest of it is just how he got to that point. And I always think that's very neat.
You
Like
mean Citizen Kane, not Rosebud?
Citizen Citizen Kane. That's it. That's right.
Yeah.
Rosebud was the yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My brain
One of
paused
the
a
most
moment there.
famous movies of all time.
Well, you know what? Fuck him. Fuck Citizen Kane. You heard it here first. Yeah. But yeah, you get the idea.
Citizen
uh,
Kane, more like Citizen Shame. It's not a new movie.
ha ha. uh, sorry.
No, that's a typical response to my jokes. I'm just that funny.
Oh yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
The thing that I thought of the thing I was thinking of earlier that I forgot. Kisekai could
Hmm.
so easily be used to make manga.
Oh, definitely.
It wouldn't it would have a very distinct style from typical Japanese manga and Korean manhwa. Like it, especially since Kisekai is sort of like the go-to art program for this community for anybody looking to make visual content um, without investing tons and tons of
Indeed.
time into learning how to draw and all that.
True. True.
I mean, just each picture that you create is a frame, and then you structure those frames in a way that flows. It
Yeah.
it would work so well, and
Indeed.
it all it would take is time. So, oh, now now I feel like
True.
I might have to learn how to do kisekai just to start making manga for people. I don't know what the limitations
Oh,
of it are.
Kisekai. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I thought you said Isekai.
No, 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 no. Kisekai, that the art program.
Kisekai. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. The art
yeah,
program. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Especially with some of these stories that just would translate so well to manga, to
Oh, definitely.
Friend Sessions by Anime Panties, like that one especially.
Hmm.
And we've seen it in manga format in one scene of it, so it worked
Hmm.
really well. Um,
Lovely. Yeah.
so, why do you think it's important to have different kinds of structure to explore?
uh, I suppose the best explanation I can think of is I know when I was a kid, there was like the old adage about eating different foods. Like, if you might really like steak, but if you had nothing but steak to eat for your entire life, you probably get sick of it after a while.
Yeah, and
I
your
think
life
that's
wouldn't be that long.
true, true. That is also an issue. But okay, blueberries. Blueberries, wonderful, high in antioxidants, probably pretty healthy. I hopefully not parasite infested. Blueberries. You really like blueberries and you eat them for the rest of your life. You probably hate blueberries by the time you're 80 and
Yeah,
undepressed.
yeah. Unless you mix in other things.
Indeed.
I mean,
Like this
there is
variety is the spice of life and whatnot.
yes, there is one food that you could eat only it for the rest of your life and never get sick of.
Mhm.
Salad, because you got
There you go.
vegetable salad, potato
Yeah.
salad, chicken salad, tuna salad, macaroni salad. You can make whatever salad you want.
Loophole.
Yes.
Haha.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's basically it. It just gets boring having the same thing over and over.
Indeed.
for both the reader and the writer.
Agreed.
Unless you
Agreed.
just unless you're just doing it for money and you don't really care about
True. I was
what
about
you're
to
putting
say.
in.
There are a good few people who do commissions in the community who, honestly, their work ethic is a lot better than mine.
Yeah, but they do sort of fall into a formula.
True. True.
And that's what I saw sort of happen with Saseda. Um, with the commissions at least, because he had he put out his novel, I Could Change Her, which I'd never seen a novel before. It was like I saw that before Hans and Shadow's novels.
Hmm?
Um, he had his Choose Your Own Adventure story, which is like a legit multi-branching 20 story in one adventure. And the only
Indeed.
other one that I'd seen kind of was You Give a Girl a Wedgie by Arctime, which just has the one choice, but you're choosing your own adventure in a way. Um,
Ah, yeah.
but then it's just the commissions, just the same thing over and over and over and over again. Just gets
Hmm.
boring. Yeah. So yes, variety is the spice of life.
Indeed.
And I mean, you do the same thing over and over again. You don't learn anything new. You don't get to experience anything new. You might be missing out on something that you might really enjoy that you're just not aware of.
Indeed. I think one of the best examples I've ever heard of it was in college. I had this professor who, whenever he would like walk by, see you reading, he would ask, "Is that a good book or a book that's good for you?" Meaning, is it a book you're just reading for the intrinsic joy of it, or is it like something for class?
I mean, I'll be a little pedantic here. I mean, I think a good book can be good for you.
Indeed, indeed. The two are not mutually exclusive, and a lot of people would say would like say back to him, uh, both, and he'd say, "Good, those are the best kinds."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Cool dude, cool dude.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, sometimes just a fun story is all you need. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, there's so many times when I was young where I just pull out whatever of my favorite book series I was reading at the time, and it would just completely draw me out of the world. It would take me away from whatever was troubling me at the moment.
Well, definitely, definitely.
Do you have any advice when considering structure while writing or reading?
Hmm. Well, my main advice would be to, uh, if you are a writer out there and you want to try and experiment with different structures, my go-to advice would be to try it with shorter stories first before committing to like a big, expansive project.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I know back in the day, one of the things I did was I basically had a story or a set of stories where the framing device was each character was playing a game of poker and sort of remembering their past as they were going through it and whatnot. So you would see it. So like one part of it would be like them having flashbacks to how they got to this point, and the other part would be them playing the game. And the game would be sort of the same across all three stories, but they would also be thinking about like their past and everything throughout. And like it was a very neat experiment and whatnot. Very quickly made me realize maybe this isn't something I want to write a lot
Yeah.
because as fun as it is, like it would be one of those things that's very intensive because while you're writing this part, you have to be looking at the other one, making sure, yeah, this lines up. It makes it feel a bit more mechanical and whatnot. It's
Mm-hmm.
a neat experience, but yeah, but at the same time, it's not something easily duplicated, or maybe too easily duplicated is a better word for it.
Yeah. I Writing at its core is and should be something done for enjoyment.
Definitely.
So if you're doing something, if you're writing something that you're not enjoying, it's just a chore. That's why so many people hate writing for school because
Oh,
it's
definitely.
just a chore. There's unless you actually like the topic and are interested in it, it's
Hmm.
just not. It's very hard to get words onto the page.
Oh,
It's
definitely. Like the way I always sign off my stories and whatnot whenever I post a new one is, I hope to see you next time, and I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed reading as much as I enjoyed writing it. And as long as you keep a good mindset like that, like if if you write something and 99 people hate it, as long as that one person who likes it is you, who cares?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, enjoyment is intrinsically linked with writing. So if you're not enjoying yourself, then while you're writing something, then you need to examine what you're writing, see if something's not working.
Definitely,
You just need
definitely.
to scrap what you're doing entirely.
Hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, yeah. Uh, it, are there any structures that you'd like to see more of?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, now it's something that I can pawn off on the community and don't have to do myself a lot. Uh, I suppose I generally like. I think it'd be neat to see a few more stories out there that sort of deal with like branching viewpoints or uh, stories about where it's more about like the location and the people who live in it are almost secondary, like just events going on around you, and you sort of see them from all the different viewpoints and whatnot. It's probably one of my favorite sort of structures out there.
Hmm. Yeah, focusing on the world. You might really, if you haven't read them already, you might really enjoy Pony Pony X9's work then,
Oh, really?
because that is like that he's like the master of world building in this community.
Oh, lovely. High praise, high praise.
Yeah, as far as
I'll
I've
have to check it
found,
out sometime.
he's far and away the best at creating a world and making it feel real and lived in, but focusing on the world instead of the people.
Ah, always nice.
Yeah, not an active writer, but
Ah,
just
unfortunate.
some incredible work that they put out. Like I talked about a couple of them. The heist, like that's within just like a paragraph or two. This world feels so much grander and more interesting than 95% of the stories out there.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about?
Ah, honestly, I think we've had too good of a conversation. I'm out of topics.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. It's good to leave them wanting more, but at the same time, I like to be exhaustive.
Fair, fair.
Well, is there anything that you'd like to promote from yourself or others?
Oh, well, let's see. Well, uh, hi, audience out there. I'm RookOfSpades. If you haven't heard of me, I don't blame you. I haven't written a ton lately. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Promise. Got me some new ADHD meds that are straight fire to my brain. Wonderful. Anyway, but yes, I have a series going on called Into Shadows. It's a nice urban fantasy piece. There's a lot with just changing landscape of the modern world. It has magic. It has monsters. It has uh, It has me commentating. No, wait, it doesn't have me commentating. It has a really cool vampire with a lisp, and everyone seems to love her. So, apparently I did something right there. Uh, but yeah, if you want to check that out, I consider it a close personal favor.
Okay.
Uh, Apart from that, I'll just shout out a few of my friends. Call me Cody, please. I mentioned their work earlier. They do wonderful stuff, and from what I've heard, they're being very productive at the moment. So look out for that. Critical Zenogre, again, very talented person. Also been very productive lately. So keep an eye out for stuff like that in the future. Uh, my good friend Patius, he does commissions, all very wonderful work. And even if you're not the one looking for commission, a lot of the stories that he's done, some of them have been good enough to get me into series I had no previous interest in. So
Wow.
give it a shot. Give him yeah, highest praise I can possibly give you.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm sure there's a lot I'm missing, but my brain's kind of fuzzy at the moment.
Yeah, that's okay. You just have to come on another episode and then promote them then.
Ah, definitely. I'll hold you to
Yeah,
that.
that's perfectly fine with me. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a really good time. Hope to have you back soon.
Hopefully.
Well, if there
If
is,
scheduling allows this time.
yeah, that's always the
Yeah,
case.
little peek behind the curtain, folks. We've been trying to do this for like a month.
Yeah, I mean that ends up being the case for most of these episodes, though.
every now
It's
every
you
now
know
and then.
it's the problem of being an adult. People got their own
Oh
schedules.
yay.
Yeah. Well, if there is anything that you'd like to hear me discuss, or if you'd like to come on for an episode, leave a comment or send me a message on DeviantArt, Lucky Fetish, or Discord as NeufAtora. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Best Book Club.